Welcome to Startup Health Now, the podcast where we celebrate the entrepreneurs and innovators who are reimagining the future of health. I'm Logan Plaster, and this is a special edition of our podcast from the floor of the Startup Health Festival taking place at ViVE in Miami. And I'm here for this episode with my colleague, Rachel Freeman.
Hi.
Glad to have you here.
Thanks
Excited
for
to
having me.
talk for this live episode about the trends and the news that we're seeing here on the floor of the festival.
Yep. So you've been interviewing a lot of our health transformers. Is there any interesting news that you've been hearing of? What are some things that are coming? What are our companies up to? Anything like that?
It's been very cool to see over the last day. I had the privilege of getting to do about 26 interviews yesterday with health transformers and folks who are in the industry, and a few of them came out with some news yesterday, which was very cool. Probably the biggest one was Jennifer Schneider, Dr. Jennifer Schneider, who is the former president and chief medical officer of Livongo. She was part of the team that guided that company through the largest health tech IPO in history, merged with Teladoc, some people call it Teledongo, valued the two companies together. I think it was $18 billion. I'm just pulling that out of the back of my head, but extremely big deal that she helped guide them through. So just a formative time for her. And then she left the company and she took some time off. And just yesterday, or maybe just this week, announced her next venture, which everyone's been waiting to hear. And so she is launching and heading up a company called Homeward, which is really focusing on bringing care, kind of last mile health, to rural populations.
Wow.
And so recognizing that something like 23%, 25% of folks in the United States live in these sort of low access areas where they can't get primary care, they can't get what they need. So Homeward has launched. Dr. Schneider, really a luminary in the industry, is heading this up. So everyone's going to be watching what she's doing. No word on what they're doing yet. It's just
It's new.
announced. It's very new. But Homeward is happening.
Cool.
The other thing that was exciting, maybe a little bit smaller in terms of, finances and magnitude, was that our company, Wellways, a company in the Startup Health portfolio called Wellways, under CEO Alex Ness, they have been working for 7 years on this technology that really makes it easier to detect breast cancer early. And this is something that's really personal and something that the founder is really passionate about. A lot of breast cancer in his family. And he developed this way using heat technology to really cheaply allow women to pre-screen themselves.
Oh.
And his passion is to make sort of pre-screening super accessible, not just in the United States, but really he has a passion for Latin America. And so there's this idea of working with governments and getting this sort of cheap pre-screening tool in the hands of millions of women, so that if they sort of show that they have a higher risk, they can come in, get a mammogram, and
That's amazing.
get the care they need.
Yeah.
I'd say those are the two news items that jump out to me from yesterday.
Yep.
Lots of other amazing things happening, but that device called Celebrea that was being released into the world this month after 7 years of development.
That's an accomplishment for them. They deserve some celebration this week.
Yes, some Celebrea celebration.
Oh yeah. So like we said, you talked to a lot of people. Have you noticed any trends? Anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah, talking to folks, there's a lot of buzzwords flow around, a lot of industry terms. Part of my job interviewing them is to try to get beyond those buzzwords. And, one of the areas we dug into was this idea of getting beyond the hype when talking about health equity. And health equity has become a top-level priority for a lot of companies. But I talked to InOn Health, KP Yopala, the CEO of InOn Health, And he has been a forerunner in talking about health equity for years, and has just been appointed to a chairman position in Colorado, talking about digital health and health equity. So really platformed for this issue, and yet he brought up this issue of getting beyond the hype and figuring out, okay, what's the value we're really bringing to diverse communities, to minority communities,
Yep.
and just trying to bridge that gap. We didn't really get into exactly how that happens, but kind of it has to start with the conversation of getting beyond the buzzwords and beyond the hype, and saying, what value are we bringing, and also where are we investing? So there's this idea that it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to really put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
And unless you're willing to put some money in up front, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
What I mean is, if you just wait until health equity programs or projects are incredibly profitable, if you wait till then to invest, then you're not going to be sort of pushing the envelope and really helping.
Yeah.
You'll just be following the money.
Exactly.
So you got to invest early.
Yeah. I feel like so many of our companies fall under the moonshot of like access to care, but I think a big question is like, what does that look like actually being like lived out in these companies?
Exactly.
And getting beyond the, we want to provide care for everyone, but what does that look like, especially in your specific niche? So
Exactly.
that's amazing.
Exactly. Another trend that spoke to me was this idea that there's a lot of amazing technology coming out, but sometimes health access and improving outcomes is about simple steps and making those simple moves more accessible. Sort of helping folks understand sort of the basic steps they can do for their health. And what comes to mind is a company called ViVE Health, and they work with Medicaid and Medicare populations, sort of high-risk populations, a lot of low-income populations that have multiple chronic diseases. And we could come into these populations with, sort of the best in technology, but really what they need, what these groups need, is a few basic steps forward. It can make a huge difference. So what ViVE Health does is they send everybody a little kit that has a blood pressure cuff, a Bluetooth blood pressure, and a Bluetooth scale, and it's all connected to an iPhone. The iPhone is already charged with hotkeys that just say, use my scale. It's all pre-packaged. There's a button that says, call my coach. And basically, the whole process of being compliant with a basic health plan is made incredibly simple. It's really not about the technology. We've had those scales and the iPhone available, but nobody kind of packaged it in a way that was simple. And because of that, I think they have something like an 83% compliance rate. Like, people use it every day, and it has huge benefits. Like, just having somebody who has type 2 diabetes, just getting them to check, their weight and trend their health and their blood pressure on a regular basis, like that alone is this huge help. And it doesn't require some huge technology.
Yeah.
It's the application of it.
Yeah, so many things in healthcare are hard, especially for people who don't have, that immediate access. So it's like, let's just eliminate like that initial barrier of how can I actually get into the door of like getting healthcare that I need. So
a lot of companies also thinking about language and just the way we communicate. Like, let's not talk. I was talking to Romy Antoine from One Stop Wellness. He does employee wellness programs, and he was talking about health literacy and how we just don't, we need to stop using $10 words for health when we can use $5 words and communicate just as clearly. Why say hypertension when you're talking to a population when you could say, high blood pressure, and really help people understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So the simplicity of just speaking clearly, sort of the age-old challenge of just being clear and concise turns out to be sometimes the best medicine, the best technology.
Yeah.
Not to say there aren't really cool technologies out there. This sort of stands in contrast to my interview with Sasha Heppel from SmartTab. Did you see SmartTab?
I did.
You did? Okay,
Yes.
so SmartTab, leader in ingestible tech.
Yes.
Kind of stands out. No one else has tech pills here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a little scary. It's a little scary looking right now
Yeah.
because it's kind of big, but it's going to get smaller. But this idea that scientists are developing pills that can be tracked through your body and deploy medicine at exactly the right moment, which allows you to take less medicine because it's targeted,
Yeah.
fewer side effects. What Sasha was telling me yesterday is that there's millions of people who have to inject themselves with a needle once a week with some sort of biologic medicine, and they're coming up with a way to avoid that through a pill. And it's just a tough road for folks who have to use a needle on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So that's crazy because what they're developing, Sasha thinks that this next decade is going to be the decade of the ingestible technology because there's so much they can do with it. But what's interesting is that it's taken so long to develop.
To get it right.
To get it right. So, like I was saying before, some things in health tech are things we can kind of riff on and they can evolve every year, and some things take a decade, and people just have to invest and do the work and take the time to do it.
Yeah, sometimes, like, we have a lot of companies who do, like, really incredible, complex things, like SmartTab. Wellways has spent 7 years creating the pre-screening. But, like, sometimes what's also great is conquering the basics of healthcare for people, so.
Did you hear about Lazaro Med?
No.
So, sort of rounding this out, talking about new technology, this really excited me. Lazaro Med, it seems niche at first when you think about it, and then you realize that it's really game-changing. So apparently there are millions of people suffering from really a collapsed airway. So as you age, the cartilage in your esophagus, your trachea, starts to collapse, and you begin to have trouble breathing. And so millions of people have been told as they get older that they are just, they have chronic cough or they have COPD, when really they're having this thing called TBM, and it is this sort of collapsed airway. And up until now, there was no real cure. People just kind of lost the ability to breathe over time, and it was really traumatic. And this guy, Dr. Lazaro, he came up with this way to perform a surgery that really kind of, they say, scaffolds your airway.
Yep.
And he's able to go in robotically, so it's a less invasive surgery, and he's able to, they say scaffold the airway and give people back their trachea, and really people come in unable to breathe and they walk out with the ability to breathe, and it's almost miraculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from New York. The idea of scaffolding an airway makes a lot of sense to me, so.
Yeah, so that is a technology that has taken years to develop, and yet when it finally is deployed at scale, and they're working with some of the top institutions in the world to develop the technology around it, and then also the education, because they got to teach all the surgeons in the world. I think something like this, which could apply to millions of people as they age and give them the breath of life back, could become something almost like LASIK, where before we thought, oh, you just lost your eyesight, and now LASIK seems almost like a miracle, right?
And it's happening constantly for people.
Right.
Like, it's so common now.
The people have learned how to do it. They've gotten really good at it, and I think this is kind of one of those surgeries, or like a total hip replacement. Like, we've gotten so good at it that that the risks have gone down. It's accessible.
Yep.
So this is one of those things. So Lazaro Med is doing that for this TBM surgery, and maybe 10 years ago, that chronic cough, loss of air, the sort of undiagnosed TBM will be a thing of the past.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So here we are, Tuesday morning, heading into the second day of the StartUp Festival at ViVE. A lot of big stuff coming on, but those are my takeaways from yesterday.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts from you?
Let me think about them. Let me get to them.
It's going to be a big day. We're going to have people in the Startup Health studio. We're going to have a main stage program.
Yes.
And lots of stuff going on at the Startup Health Pavilion.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, our team is trying to get people on stages in front of cameras to get just like the most amount of information out about our like startup health companies as possible while we're here. So it's insane.
It's a lot going on. You're going to be able to watch everything we've recorded here on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/startuphealth, and we'll be sending it out in our email newsletter. So catch that, and thanks for joining us.